human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. Welcome, Michelle. We are here
Yeah.
talking shift today. How are you doing?
Yeah. Good. Good. Little full moons are always a bit of a roller coaster for me, so I hope I'm coherent today. Yeah,
Exciting
I hope I
times for
don't.
sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. We have a few things to talk about. We made a list when we chatted last week, and I said to you then that usually when February kicks off, so do a lot more new dream experiences and kind of a new level of things for me. And so it did. Yeah, so I'm still kind of like working through a whole bunch of new downloads right now.
hmm
So hopefully I'm coherent on the list that we talked about last week.
Right, yeah, so much has changed, but so much has like been added to too, like because we were
Yeah.
talking about dreams changing and ramping up, but then even more to discuss involving dreams. I had I've been noticing fragments coming through, like something during the day will make me remember a piece of a dream. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, I had a dream about, somebody mentioned something about a wreck, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a dream about a wreck, I think, but I couldn't
Well,
like
that's
really,
I think though,
right.
because there's the point. I'm really glad you brought that up. The this experience of like going about your day and then all of a sudden you see something and like and it brings it back to you, but like a lot of times I'll find I even have to be like, hold on, okay, but did that actually happen or was that a dream?
Right,
And really trying to like, because they seem like real life things sometimes or kind of real life situations,
right.
and sometimes those lines are like can be really blurry, and it feels like a day that was inserted in there that just didn't actually exist. And yeah, just left with this feeling of like, hold on a second, really having to think about whether or not that was a dream or it actually happened.
Yep. And we've been
Yeah.
talking about that sort of thing happening for a while, but um, you had mentioned dreams were going to ramp up, and that is what's been ramping up for me is like these little snippets of a dream that I can't quite
Yeah.
remember. So hopefully they get clearer and clearer because I love remembering my dreams. I think they can tell us a lot, and I think
A
there's
lot.
sometimes a lot of stuff going on, but I just can't remember it.
It really, I feel that dreams are a language composed by our subconscious and our higher consciousness, kind of at the same time. And there really is this merging experience in dreams that I'm finding of awareness of having the subconscious experience at the same time I'm having like a conscious lucid experience, but also then I have the higher consciousness at the same time who's like going around and explaining to me all the meanings of everything that I'm seeing.
Right.
Oh, well, that's this and this is that, and there's really something happening. I think, we probably 2 years ago brought up how I felt that there's this merging with dream reality and this reality in some way.
hmm
Um, and I really think that the dreams, for many of us, can be a vehicle to this embodiment. And there's so many different ways that it's got so many tricks and techniques to bring about um, our authentic self, like birth it into this living reality through the birth canal of our dreams.
Right.
That makes if that makes
Yeah.
sense, right? So for those that may be experiencing um embodiment in dreams, activations in dreams, like levitation, high levels of lucidity, and these states of beings in dreams. Um, I'm finding like it's more and more and more, and it's merging. There's this blending of of making it like real in our reality. It's connected somewhat to like what I was saying about having these like remembrances of dreams come back, and you're like, okay, was that real or was it not real? Because what's happening when we experience these amazing like embodiment experiences in dreams, like our whole body is saying that that's a real experience. Like my cells are telling myself, my DNA, my mind, my emotions, like are telling my whole body that that really happened, right? I really experienced those things. So it's belief. It's when we the core of beliefs that like are grounded into us of what our reality is. So the more and more we experience these um higher states in dreams, the more our dream reality is blending with like this reality. We're like birthing that state of being and believing within like the cells of our very physical beings that that's like what we truly are. And then we're just emanating it more and more. It's like ourselves are believing it more and more. Oh, that's my authentic me. This is what it feels like. Remember what it feels like to be authentic. Now, I know that everybody's not having those kinds of dreams. And just because you're not, there's a lot of different ways that this process is happening for all these different kinds of currents of consciousness and how we're integrating and working through this process. So, in a lot of ways, what I'm saying is for those who are um, masters of the dream realm. I
Right.
think
And it's just going
we're
to play out that way for them, where for someone else it might play out a
it could
completely
be a
different
completely
way.
different
Yeah.
way. So, and I totally, respect that we all have, our own unique way that we're birthing ourselves, and we're coming into being, um, and bringing that forth
Hmm.
into this reality and birthing that into this reality. So,
It really is
um,
like we're conduits for the
yes,
divine to express itself through us in our
yeah,
unique expression, because we're all like little fragments, individual, unique, special fragments, and we all
yes.
make up this beautiful mosaic, or pixels on the grand scheme of things. So everyone's needed
Yeah,
just like we
of
are.
of how this like evolution is exploding
Hmm.
in all these, streams of collective consciousness. Because, like a lot of ways we're like this big ocean, but there is all these like currents that go through it.
Hmm.
um so we do have like, smaller collectives, I think, within those collectives, and together, we may share working the way that we're working and through this process, and discovering what its true meaning is to us, right?
Right, and this
So
also this being more and more of your authentic self kind of ties into what we were talking about with the merging or converging of the timelines, and the fact that even with the memory that I had, I can't tell you that it wasn't from an alternate timeline, right? For me,
right.
I said it was a dream, but it could have been another merger of another me with different experiences that is leading to me being more my authentic self, right? So all of
Yeah,
you know, it's all sort of bottlenecking in that way that you've almost talked about before, the way the energy kind of bottlenecks in. But it's like
yeah,
all of our authentic selves are coming together and we're growing into this. We don't realize it, but becoming more and more of our higher self is essentially what's happening.
yeah. It was really oh,
So it
sorry,
played
it's
out
kind
for
of
you
like,
in the dream, is what I was saying. I didn't mean to get off of that,
yeah,
but it played out.
no,
That's sort of how it played out in your dream, where other people does music or art or whatever, and it's even doing that in your art too. So
oh, for
it's playing
sure.
out in different ways, even within your own life. All of our lives.
Yeah, Yeah, the messages are like in everything. Um they come through in like everything you're doing and experiencing when you start to like really listen
Right.
to um what the what really yourself, you know, your higher self, your authentic self is like trying to show you and teach you about who you really are.
Yeah.
Everything, everything is a reflection of that. Yeah.
Hello to
So,
everyone in the chat.
hi
Um,
guys.
here's Willow Pillow
We're
sending
we're a
us
couple
some.
weeks past our original date that we had set ourselves for a show, but we got to it.
Yeah,
So,
we're here.
yeah.
We're
Yeah.
here. So if you guys want to share any kind of symptoms or new experiences or changes that you've noticed with the energies or anything like that, we'd love to have it on record. You know, when you leave a chat, it's there for other people to read. Or if you're watching
Yeah.
later, you can leave a comment, of course, because we do read them and we appreciate them.
Yeah, I like the feedback, and you know, I like to know too, you know, is anybody else finding a change in how like how they're experiencing their dreams, moving through their dreams, dealing with situations in their dreams, and if they are noticing an authentic self coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
mm-hmm.
another theme that we had talked about bringing up was paving the way or being way showers or pioneers, if you will, and how much has already been how much that we're experiencing now is a result of so many decades of people paving the way. So the analogy I was shown was of like a mountain that no one's climbed, and when someone finally climbs it, it's this huge obstacle that was overcome, this huge accomplishment. But you
Mm-hmm.
might find 10 or 20 years later, they've now built a road that you can drive your car up there and other people can go there now. But it all
Mm-hmm.
started with the one climber. And it was shown to me how the trend that I'm seeing now is people that maybe you would have never thought of. Maybe they were ultra religious. This has come up a few times. Not everybody, but just
Right.
certain people they seem to be on this fast track to awakening. Like years and years of deprogramming just falls away, and it was shown to me in like meditation this mountain uh, analogy, that it's they're only able to do that because of the decades and decades of people before that broadened and were open-minded enough to create this space right
Yeah.
within the human collective consciousness. So
Yeah.
we were at a point when it just couldn't be understood at the levels it's being understood now. And then you have people like Alan Watts and so many people along the way, and just people maybe in our community, just on a personal level that, just people they've been in contact with, like these stories I hear of people that
Mm-hmm.
seem like they were so religious that they'd never be open minded to other things, and now all of a sudden they're like, just blast it
Cracked wide
wide open.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear that sort of thing in the comments or in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Well,
you,
I
you
really
know,
I really think that's like connected to you know, the analogy I gave of sort of us being this big ocean of consciousness, but having these currents. And then it's, you know, micro to macro, just like as we reprogram like the pathways in our own self of like how we do things, you know, because when we're on autopilot, you have these habits of the way you react and make decisions and everything. So as we like break down those old ways of how we did things, and then we form like new habits, new pathways in our brain to on how we deal with things and how we problem solve, and it's really tricky at first, you know, like in I've used to see this for years, sort of the mind being, you know, this forest, and to create a new habit, you're really like blazing that trail through that first, and you it's hard work to create that new pattern, but the more you repeatedly walk it and use it, then it just becomes easier, and the old pathway just overgrows and it
right.
dies off, right? And so we are doing that in that stream of consciousness as well, right? So, as our streams, or some currents veer off to create this new pathway, it does, the momentum of that is really pulling others along in that sort of collective stream of consciousness. It's like gathering the water around even and pulling it, along with it. It's creating a new current.
Yeah, and it's like
So
it's really what Dolores Cannon was talking about with the three waves of volunteers and sort
mm,
of the first group having it the hardest, right? Because they were the most,
yeah.
they stuck out the most. They were, you know what I mean, the most. They just had the toughest time. Where the second wave had a little bit less forest to deal with, basically, like you're saying, sort of
Mm-hmm.
paving that way. And now we're actually
Mm-hmm.
seeing it come to fruition now. And although I knew, because I read the Dolores Cannon books, it's hard to imagine what it's actually going to play out like, how it's going to actually look, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, what it actually, and that's really kind of what it has been coming to me over the last week, is like what this is like actually really supposed to feel like, what it's actually really all about. And and there's really this, awakening. You see the dynamic in the narrative of woke and awakening, sort of red pill, blue pill, again, take your choice. But it's kind of like picking a polarity and picking a narrative still. Um, Sorry.
That's why I like to go with the aware over, you know,
Yeah. And but what's come to me is like what we're actually supposed to be awakening to, right?
hmm
And yes, we awaken to the narcissistic relationships that we may be engaged in, whether it's personal or work, and we disengage from those. Then we like awaken to the narcissistic relationship that we're engaged in on a global level as far as the agenda and such, right? But then it all comes back to um, the micro to macro, back into oneself, and to realize that sort of the ego, the identity, the mind can often really be the narcissist in one's own head, gaslighting you
yeah.
and everything. And after that, after that, and lifting those out, like disengaging from those elements, the relationships, disengaging from the grand plan, and disengaging from the narcissist in one's own self. What we're actually supposed to be awakening to is not the illusion. Is That's just one step. What we're supposed to be awakening to is, and I know I say this, but I actually we use the term authentic self, what we actually like really are. And the experience I had this week actually made me feel that, and in a very profound way. And really, the truth, the words are so simple, it doesn't express the magnitude, the high voltage
right.
of the truth of this feeling, is that we are simply and just like purely love. When you strip away all the stories, when you strip away all the defenses, and you strip away all the judgments, right? And the polarities, all of it, what's left is light and just love. And we are at its core pure, unadulterated, compassionate love. And so for myself, I really experienced that feeling emanating from myself this week. It goes back to a dream. I was showing you some artwork I was doing recently. A dream I had with a woman I call the Purple Queen. And this dream came to me in probably one of the most difficult years of my life. Um, the dream I was having, my teeth were falling out, and they're all falling out into my hand. And that's often when I'm worried about money, stress, insecurities. That's when you get those kinds of dreams, right? I was so upset about my teeth and trying to put them back, and was, just crying, distraught. And I walked into this large cathedral like church. It was almost like two churches put together. Um, and there was a woman just robed, and she came to me with so much compassion in her face. And this is the first time I had ever experienced love like that. Like love so much that it just like covers you like a blanket, like it's a physical thing. Um, and often the way that we experience love in this world is like a shadow in comparison to this. So there's more. I don't need to get into the rest of the dream. What the real point was, this experience. I'd never experienced love like that. So this last week, in having a vision in a hypnosis state, I experienced that dream again, but I experienced the truth of who she was and that it was me. And I experienced her, me, merging with myself. And that love not just covering me, but also coming from me. And experiencing it in a very physical way. So I understand in my body, like where you carry it, like how you position yourself. I could feel within my body the areas of resistance to giving love so freely like that. All the little barriers and blocks and defenses and, little things that just make you go, oh, I can't do that. Right. That's unconditional, all out there, kind of experience. So sum it up, guys. That's what I've really been working with this week. And with that experience has come a lot of dreams where I've been levitating and practice levitating and practicing embodying this feeling, and then experiencing the results of that in dream, like, and how I'm able to even more so just move around and experience a dream state in a whole new level of just absolute freedom. I was levitating around it, so because I kind of go in and out of this lucidity, sort of recognizing that I am in a dream, to like sometimes the experiences are so real and so ongoing, and they just seem to go on forever and ever, like you're having a day, and so it just really feels real. And at one point I just was floating around so much, I thought, well, I guess gravity's over with. Like there's just no gravity anymore. Gravity was never like a real thing, like,
Like
and
everything else.
yeah, but again, it comes back to this like state of experience, like in embodying this experience where this is so believable as like reality, like knowing it as a truth, and having these experiences within your physical body, and like being so conscious, like on all three levels, like I said, subconscious, the conscious level, and the higher consciousness, all sort of having this conversation in the dream. And then it's like, see how it feels like, this is what it feels, and just it wants you to know it, know it, know it. And the
Yeah.
prompts to like be in this reality and remember that, and sort of just take a couple minutes and just like close your eyes and just like be that again, be in that space again, bringing it in. Yeah, sorry, I hope I'm not rambling, trying to
Oh, no,
trying
no.
to express all this.
No, it's beautiful. We were talking about, I had been really trying to make, that distinction between when you're just thinking, trying to figure things out from the ego, right? Because you were just talking about the ego and putting them in the back seat. And
Mhm.
then I just had this analogy. I always have funny pictures in my head. It's like,
Me
oh,
too.
there's a good visual for two masks, right? Put it on your ego in the back seat. Like, you need to wear two masks, you know.
Right.
muffle them a
Yeah.
little bit, right? So yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. It really is that. But I had been reading that book that I recommended everybody check out, the Supercharged Self Healing book, and in that he was, you know, giving like tips and stuff of how to like make that distinction between the thinking mind and creativity. You know, the imagination, and
Mm-hmm.
and the imagination's been put down so much, but that's where every single thing is created. You know, that's where we go to that we love so much when we're daydreaming or creating art. You
It's
know.
a manifestation tool. It's like one of our greatest tools.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why I called myself the imagination warrior,
Right.
because I recognized the value of your imagination as a powerful tool for manifestation. I recognize that a lot of, not everybody thinks the same way I do. You and I, we have this connection, I think, because we visualize and sort of
Mm-hmm.
see things in our head, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the same way. The way you can see pictures,
Right.
the way you can kind of like embody an experience in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah, and pull it to you.
And that's that same place. You know, we're just
Yeah.
hanging out in the imagination. It's where like Eileen comes through in that place. I'll be thinking about one thing, and here she comes. It's almost made it apparent that there's this room, right? And there's like in this room, you can watch something, you can listen to something, you can, you know, feel something, smell something, everything, all the senses we have here and more. You can just create, you know, it's like our holodeck in our mind, in our consciousness
Yes.
that we go to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
we've got our own holodeck.
and it's like
Yeah.
becoming more and more aware that it's like that, you know, that it's a
Yeah.
real, very real place, because I've always felt like it's an imaginary place, right? Oh gosh, you get
Right.
language does us no justice, by the way, you guys. We kind of have to just use the
I
words that we
know.
have, right? Because as soon as I
That's the
say
problem
something,
now.
I'm like really diminishing it back down to the point of, oh, it's just your imagination, right? But it is that distinction between when you dream up something or you think of something, and when something just comes to you intuitively, or it's maybe an innate ability you have, and it just comes through when you see a little kid playing the piano. You're like, oh, he's clearly had a previous life on the piano, and he's remembering on some kind of level or something, right? And it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not hard to see that play out sometimes in life, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really kind of getting back to that place, and it's like for all of us, it's like at least for me in the work I do, it, you know, whether it's here in BQH sessions or whatever, it's like trying to guide people back to that creative place within themselves, because our journeys are so unique and individual, like we were talking about earlier, that
Mm-hmm.
there's not really a one size fits all on anything except for go within. Go within to find
Yeah.
your answers. That's the best place, you know.
Well, I really liked the analogy you used of the room within
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm.
And I really feel that one. Like it's like go inside yourself and find the different rooms that you
Right.
have. And it's like before awakening, it's like we're all just in our attic, you know, and we think that's the only room. But when you start moving out of the attic and moving around, when you stop thinking and like you just listen and listen quietly, it's like when you can find those other rooms, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
Greenheart says, Christ is your own imagination. That's from Neville Goddard. That's
Mm.
great. I like that. Because it gets into the Christ consciousness, right? Because making decisions and being discerning, I don't know how many times people will get into a meditative state or a hypnotic state within a session or whatever, and stuff just becomes so clear to them because they're operating from the heart, right? So things that they just couldn't let go of while their active left brain was telling them all the reasons they can't let it go,
This is it.
they get into this deep state and it's so clear to them at that point. You're like,
Yeah.
duh, they don't need
Yeah.
anything else. They just needed that moment of clarity from that other place and not from the ego, because the ego's like, we can't let it go. I have something to protect, that, you know, all this made up stuff, the stories you always talk about, people, you
Yeah.
know, I have to protect this and this, right? And that's all left brain. All that falls away in a session. And they're like, oh, man, it would be so nice to just let this go. Why haven't I let this go a long time ago? Whatever it is, you know what
hmm
I mean?
Yeah. well, the hypnosis sessions are they've really been a big tool and are a big tool, I think. Like that's the difference. Like when you're in that state and you're under the hypnosis, like you're listening, right?
Hmm.
You're just like watching a movie unfold. You're not thinking.
Right.
You're not
It's like you're
you're
in that
not
room. It's like
yes,
you're
you're
in
not.
that room and you've given your guides permission to turn on their
And you
TV
just
or
sit
the
back.
sound or whatever, and you just experience the journey. Yeah.
Right, because you're like, I know you see this in sessions, they'll like say somebody enters their experience and it's like, okay, well, and then you ask them, well, what do they have to say?
Hmm.
Right? And you're not thinking about it.
Right.
You're listening. Okay, well, what are they saying? And then you just like wait and you see if you hear anything,
Hmm.
right? But yeah, that's exactly it. Like it can really build that familiarity with what it means to listen
Yeah.
in that room, like as opposed to think. And I think that what's happening with that is instead of using like our eyes and our ears, we're listening with our third eye. We've moved to our other sense, right?
Hmm.
Because the mind is just plugged in. Okay, my eyes just see this, my ears like, so this is like another, we just
Right.
moved to another
It's
room, but
just for
it
this
uses
realm,
another.
really. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This
So
room,
that,
this realm.
yeah, it's like the third eyes got that one, that
Right.
room. You listen. You
And it's the
listen and
same
see
way.
at the same time.
And it's
Yeah.
the same way as by yourself. By yourself, you might find it difficult meditating or whatever, that like something will creep in. You're like, oh, I got to do this or that. And then all these random thoughts that come in. And it's like that in a session for some people. At the higher levels, if they're not able to get deep enough, and like, well, I'm just thinking that because of this, and I'm just thinking that because of that. And if they can just quiet that, they'll have a much better session. I just wanted to mention that because it's not easy for everybody to do that, to
No,
ignore
well,
that ego.
expectations
And
can
it's
really get in the way.
right, expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you kind of go in
Yeah.
there like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know we're going to connect to something and we're going to get whatever we need out of this, and
Yeah.
kind of leave it like that. That's, you know, the best
Yeah,
way
I didn't even
questions
like
can
doing
answer.
questions with mine, like, like writing the pre-list of questions because I felt like that would just like my mind would already be working out, you know,
Right,
the answers in the background and as opposed to just like not having a specific agenda of like I have to know this
right,
or sort of this expectation of the experience to just like release all of it and just well whatever happens
right.
happens.
I went in with,
And so you're not thinking too much beforehand, building up things,
right.
that get in the way when you're there.
And on my better
So
session, I think it was like that. When I went into it, like, I don't even know what I need to know. Tell me what
yeah,
I need to know. I don't know
yeah.
anything.
Tell me what I need to know.
Just I'm
Yeah,
open. And
that's
if
the
you
way
go
I like.
like that,
Yeah.
then that's a few more strands you're snipping off of the ego ahead of time, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if just the act of writing the question, the ego's going to be like, well, it's probably going to say this, and it's probably going to be this, and it's probably, and then so
Yeah.
so for me, yeah, I can see why questions can be helpful for some people to maybe try to stay focused, but I can definitely see how it could be better to just let it go and get in the flow and see what comes through, because
Well,
it's
if you're
not
really
like you need
quiet,
to
yeah.
direct it too much.
Well, if you're really quiet, just reading the questions that you have, like
Hmm.
yourself, will tell you a lot about where you're at. Like
Yeah,
what, yeah. Just like kind of state taking a step back and observing your own questions
yeah,
from a higher level. I don't even think you need to go into a hypnotic state to get that. But the other thing is, for a first timer, to maybe they haven't had a session before, I think
hmm,
it would be great to do, some trial runs on the own, like with guided meditations. There's
hmm.
so many great ones.
Absolutely. It is
Like
a lot
I
like
would
a
say,
guided meditation for people.
well, it
It's
is,
just
yeah.
more
So
interactive. Yeah.
yeah, so just do a few of those to just
Hmm.
like prep yourself to just like relax and what it feels like to go through a different process. They're all different. There's lots of different kinds out there. Steve Noble, I love, and I think there's Joe T. There's tons of them you can explore. So, what's actually the Monroe Institute, because they've got the whole binary thing on there,
Yeah.
and their meditations work towards like lucidity and
Out
astral
of body and
travel,
all that stuff.
all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. So, but they'll put that stuff will put you under. It's got the ocean waves and
Oh yeah.
that I put that on all the time. And I often find, because I'll do sort of a rest, a guided meditation, hypnosis, some binary beats, late afternoon in a quiet time, and I'll often drift off, and I have those things playing. Like I'll have some amazing dreams, highly lucid dreams, flying around. Yeah. I was
Wow.
I was doing backflips out of body a couple weeks ago. Literally, never experiencing anything like that before. I was like having a blast. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely that was probably my first experience was some Hemisync
Yeah.
CDs like back in like I don't know around 98, 99 somewhere in there. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty long ago. And then I got into the Silva method, which was really cool too. That helped with doing these visualizations. One of the stories that he tells in there was this guy that was visualizing going out of his body and passing through the wall. And when he passed through the wall, he saw a screwdriver behind the drywall that had been left in there, and they put the wall up over there. And he went and cut a hole in the wall. He just had to see, and he found the screwdriver. He knew he really passed through the wall because there was
Right.
no way to know that the worker left the screwdriver in there when they were building the wall, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So that
Yeah.
was kind of cool. But yeah, that was all early on for me, like sort of the cracks beginning to form in the shell of
Mm-hmm.
my reality, right?
Yeah. Well, you really wonder, because I mean, like that's the perfect example too, where you could just like have an experience like that and discount it as your like imagination.
Yeah,
But is it though? I mean, maybe sometimes it is, and isn't it? Like, what is real, not real?
right.
And like I said, when you have like a really profound experience, whether it was actually like real or in dream or a vision or whatever, your body on all these levels has experienced it as a real thing.
Right.
So, what is the difference, really?
Yeah.
And as far as the power of your consciousness and to manifest, I don't think it knows the difference. It doesn't matter the difference. It's
Right.
like belief. As long as you believe, like your cells believe, like that's real, feel it as real, then it's real.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that ties into speaking of real is we were talking about the AI that's emerging and everything, right? We actually had a
Mm-hmm.
clip. You might have missed it, but during the iMac Open Tables episode, we Chris was talking to the AI, and he asked him, how did he ask? He said,
Which
he's
AI was he talking to?
it's like a chat
Chat
GP.
GPT?
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
right.
that one. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can watch the video or whatever, but he was trying to check it for like Mandela effects, and it gave the current answer of the Berenstain Bears, but then when he rephrased the question, well, who's the family that well, who is the Berenstein Bears? He apologized for his previous answer and said, "I'm sorry, my previous answer was wrong. It's the Berenstein Bears." I'm like, "What? That's so wild." So it's kind of fun that we were already talking about getting on this topic of AI writing,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes whole articles and things like that. And then, of course, as artists, both me and you as artists, we look at some of this art that's been created, which is clearly like some type of AI that's able to plagiarize humans to the point of it not being recognizable of who they ripped off. Basically, that's basically what it is.
Right,
Because
right,
I've seen
right,
some of them will have signatures in the corner that is a compilation of a bunch of different art, and it looks kind of creepy because it looks like some kind of alien writing that it's created out
right,
of.
right.
It's not even letters or anything most of the time. So that whole thing and kind of cutting out the middleman right? So we were
Yeah.
talking about that. Um,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know you're trying to segue. We may be poor on segues today. We're usually masters at the segue. Um, yeah, like so when we were talking the other week, I was seeing a lot of changes, I think, coming up with um creativity, right? And
yeah, that's what it was. Because you were talking
yeah.
about some of the, I don't know if we should even say the name, but some of the fashion industry stuff and some of their
Well,
polluted artwork, but done by
mhm.
humans, but not AI,
Mhm.
you know. So there's that
Right.
distinction of like dark art, if you will, or, you know, positive art or whatever, just art. I don't know if we even have to put a label on it or whatever, but clearly there's some sinister stuff in some of the art, right? And the way they've set things up, and it's come out in the public and went viral on
Right.
Twitter, things like
Well,
that.
that's what so that's what I was seeing was like um the collapse of um propped up by middlemen, right? The backstage producers and middlemen propping up um art in all these different forms, whether it's Hollywood, right? The the music industry, the music producers, like we all can see with the Grammys just the other day how bad that is.
Did
It's
anybody
like,
hit anybody? I missed that one. I guess
oh, it was
everybody
just
missed
so
it. It's at the point
satanic.
everybody. Oh, okay.
It was so satanic. It was all satanic imagery, and literally people dance around with horns and Satan costumes, and all brought to you by Pfizer, you know.
Right.
It was just so, it's like really everybody's just kind of like really, you know. And then the gaslighting going back the other way from the liberal side, it's like, you know, oh, those, you know, right wingers see everything is satanic. It's like, okay, all right. So yeah, that's pretty entertaining. But anyways, you know, you've got the music industry, you've got the fashion industry, photography. With fashion goes photography, um, and you know, even authors, right? It'll go around. But there's a lot of ways that those industries, you know, have really been manipulated and taken over and kept truly talented people out. Like you can't break through the wall unless you know, sign the contract or are on the agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's been this like collapse of these. We saw it starting with Hollywood, you know, now the music industry being exposed, you know, and now recently you're seeing the fashion industry now really getting exposed, you know, people seeing their runway shows as for the sort of satanic things that they are, and seeing their recent advertising campaigns where it's obvious um, that they're aiming at children in an incorrect way. And then as people research that and they look in the background of that, well, that leads you to, you know, the photography and the art. There's a whole
It's kind of
um
like chipping paint, isn't it? It's like, oh,
it
goodness, what
really
have I
is.
done?
Well, there's a whole art world, you know, propped up as well, by a way for like elites to launder money,
Right.
basically, like paying ridiculous sums of money for art by artists, and you know, propping them up as valuable. They inflate value, and it's just a way for them to
Right.
move money around, right? But what, you know, where's the real artists aren't getting, you know, don't, you know, haven't been getting a chance. So, you know, it's interesting you bring up the AI on one side. So now we have computer technology and we have the internet and we have the ability to interact in different ways. And you know, yes, on one sense you do have sort of this AI coming out to do a lot of the work, and it's kind of a, there's always pros and cons, eh? There's always blacks and whites,
Right.
and so I know, you know, people have concerns on one side, but on another side it gets rid of a lot of middlemen. And there's a lot of ways each of these industries, middlemen are being gotten rid of. Tom McDonald in the music industry is a really good example of that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Independent artists who are able to not sign any contracts and be able to get the attention that they deserve and sell their work and make a great living, and, get the recognition that they deserve for the content that they're creating.
And you
So,
notice a
you
lot
know,
of times in music industry, if you're doing it, if you're trying to cut them out of it, like I think like a Justin Bieber, he was found on YouTube, right?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
not knocking him or anything. I'm just saying they found him, discovered him, and snacked him up. That way, he's not a
yeah, they
free
ate that
agent
boy
anymore,
whole.
right?
Right. Now, who knows what he is anymore?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Um, but so that's really happened in a lot of these different agencies. So the movie industry, like, there's so much content you can get access to now. You don't have to watch Hollywood garbage anymore. There's amazing content coming out from all over the world. If you don't mind subtitles, there's great stuff. So we don't have to watch the same dribble, right? We don't have to listen to the same dribble. um, Creative people are able to get their work out there in like new ways. And now, even more so, you can use these new tools, to kind of do the work of packaging and marketing yourself
Hmm.
without having to get a middleman, pay somebody else to build your stuff for you, write your content, boom, boom. Yeah. You know what?
Right.
Anybody can push that out. Like,
Right.
it's, you know, so yeah, I think there's going to be a real explosion over the next year as we see creativity in all these different aspects, you know switch over who has the power and control over that, put it back into the individual's hands to get the content that they're creating out there in new ways, and stop giving all this recognition to people in these controlled industries that don't deserve it.
Exactly, because essentially it's been hijacked. Like
Yes,
so many
all of
things.
it.
Yeah.
All these different things,
Right.
right? So real talented people, I think, are going to be able to get their stuff out there. But there's always the race, right?
And it's
But I
always
don't.
like, everything usually happens backwards. And that's exactly how we see it happening here. We thought, well, we got to change all this stuff. But really, human consciousness is changing so much that people are realizing how much all these established institutions aren't working anymore, or how corrupt
Yeah,
they've always been, right? And they're
yeah,
just realizing all of this. And it's like, there's so many examples right now. People have so many different ways to wake up to this, and I love what you said earlier. It is sort of like it's a sadness at first, right? That you have to go through before you realize, like, that first awakening is traumatic for a lot of people.
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
depressing when you see that you've
Well,
been
it's
lied to.
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, and people are waking up to a
Yeah,
lot at one time. Think of that
yeah,
one series that we were talking about. What was it? Fall of the Cabal or whatever. There's like part
right.
26 or something now. And they really spill the beans on everything, right? Somebody that
Yeah,
just is completely not aware of anything that sits through that. Wow. They've really covered decades of stuff in, this long bingeable. Like you said, there's plenty of things to watch. You can go like on,
yeah,
I don't know, Rumble or BitChute or something like that and watch it. But you got all of those, and it's done in a way that exposes so much, and really everything's like rotten at this point. You're like, wow, there's
yeah.
like, we really need to just kind of like bring in the bulldozer and start fresh with everything. you know
Well, there's so much to this experience, you know. Like, I think I mentioned earlier, it's like waking up to the narcissist on these different levels,
mm-hmm.
right? And it starts often with like relationships, or maybe the job, or like that personal setting around you. And if you're anyone who's been like I have, stuck in that empath narcissist dynamic, and when you wake up to the horror that they truly are, um, the lies get revealed, and what the monstrosity of like who they are. I mean, it's quite a process, and you're like, how do you even disengage? And it's such a mountain to get through. Um, but there's a stage where I really feel like I see a lot of people getting to that really reminds me of like when you really on a deep level disengage yourself from that narcissist relationship, like you're done. Like there's a lot of women who are going to recognize the way I say the word done. Done. Like I'm just done. I'm over it. I'm done. I got nothing. There's nothing else. So their actions and the all the demonstrations, everything become like very, it becomes very self-evident. You're almost like, how do I even not see this before? They look like puppets dancing on a string, you know, or just everything. You can see the over exaggeration of everything, and you're almost like, how did I not
Right.
see that? Right.
And we
But
were talking like that's how it is in the world today. When you look around at all the
it really
characters, they really
is.
look like they're parts. You know what I mean? The parts they're playing.
There's so it's so overly theatrical. You
Yeah.
know, narcissists, I find they're very theatrical, and in a lot of ways this is what engages you with them in the first place, you know, because when they're shining on you, you know, it's there can be a lot of razzle dazzle, right? But once they got you locked in and you're not doing what they want the way that you want them to do it, you know, then come out all the control patterns and the gaslighting and and then before you know it, like you don't even realize, you know, how you're engaged. But
But once you
yeah,
see it, it's like once you see it in the relationship, right? Then when it pops up on, you know, like you were saying, the whole global scale, you're looking around, and you're like, wait a minute, I recognize this
yeah,
pattern, right? And then you were
yeah. So
talking
you're
about
like,
that,
hold on a second, that's
right,
gaslighting.
right,
My TV, those is gaslighting me right now.
right.
What's going on? Yeah, like
And
why
then
do I
that
feel like
next
this?
step is going within and realize we've been gaslighting ourselves about so many things, right? Like without
Yeah,
even like
yeah,
lying to ourselves, basically, without even realizing it. You're like, oh my god, I've
yeah,
been doing this to myself on that TV in my mind, right? Like I said, there's that
yeah,
room. We've been gaslighting ourselves on the TV of our mind in many instances, you know, keeping
yeah.
ourselves. So it really is a prison of the mind, you know.
It is.
That's what this whole
It's
battle
funny.
is.
I have to share because I was just reminded of just a cute story. You know, a couple weeks ago, um, Mom was watching a TikTok video and she stopped me. She's like, "Can you have a look at this? Like, this is making me feel weird. This video. Like, I don't like this, and I want to know why. Will you watch this?" And I watched it, and it was a doctor and giving arguments on why you whatever you should do that, and he was very patronizing, and he was like flipping through his arguments really fast, and he was like, and I watched the video, I'm like, that's gaslighting. It's like 101 gaslighting. Like there's
My
so many
question is of like, are
strategies.
they fooled? Because they seem pretty convinced. I mean, my
No,
whole thing
yeah.
is, are they fooled too, or do they realize what they're? That's always my question because you could totally tell it's, you know.
Well, what I had Mom do is like I told her, watch the video without hearing his words. Put it on mute. Just put it on mute. So you're not hearing what he's saying to you. Now just like watch. And you can see it, you can see all the body language, all the positioning, right? Of how they hold the chin, of the way the eyes are like slightly crazy. And they're looking at you like this. And you can see it, and all of a sudden all the theatrics
Like, I
become
can't believe you
apparent.
can't see this. I can't believe you're
Well,
so
then it
blind.
just becomes so evident. Like he's like actually like pushing his energy out. Like you can see all the body language. I you know what, and I want to say too that that kind of really comes to me what's going on these last couple months. I've started discovering my downloads on a deeper level, and it really is about how we carry ourselves in the body, how we like move through this reality, and how much our body language shows whether we're present or not, you know, and how much like if we're forward in our head, like literally your posture changes, right? The thinker,
Right.
like this, right? And everything curls in like around. You think of all the people that walk around with their phones like they're not even, they're like this, right? Or a person that's like insecure and the shoulders go,
Hmm.
that was a big problem for me, right? um so I'm really finding right now it's like it really wants you to know the difference of being present. So seeing people's body language, read the discernment from body language is like on high. It's not just what you don't need to hear what they're saying anymore, because the language the body language tells you everything you need to know about somebody, how they feel about themselves, their motivations, whether they're grounded or not, right?
Right.
They just give it gives off everything. And the practice of being really seated in oneself as you move through this reality and feeling it in a different physical way. So I kind of think I'll just say that's tied to a lot of the um, earth shaking, and like it's physical right now. There's going to be more physical stuff on earth as far as
Getting
the
shaken up.
weather and the shape. Yeah. We're going to feel it on a physical level. So say that again one more time, Michelle. Sorry. I have a tendency to do that because the words are so limited sometimes. When I'm expressing these ideas, I'm feeling them within myself conceptually.
Yeah.
So I end up kind of repeating the same thing, but it's an energetic idea I'm trying to push out.
Oh, I totally get it.
I
Yeah.
know you know what I mean because you
Yeah.
feel it when I
And,
do
and, and
it.
I do it from video to video. It's like, oh, am I saying the same thing again? And I've
Straight
done that,
over and over.
but there's always someone new, So it's like, if it's a short enough snippet, I'll go ahead and say it. Like now, remember to take your deep breaths with a huge sigh of relief, everybody, periodically throughout the day. You were talking about some
Mm-hmm.
practice you were doing where take just a moment and be now again, and to really bring yourself. And
Yeah.
you could discuss that
Embody.
because it's that same thing. Let's. And I love the sigh of relief because you hear yourself. It's powerful. You hear yourself,
Yeah.
let it go, and it's like
Yeah.
this self-feeding relaxation. So do it,
Yeah.
if you get triggered, anytime you get triggered. I do it every time I get triggered. And don't do it with, like, my daughter says, well, she does it with like a, right? And like, no, you can't hear yourself being frustrated. You're just feeding that frustration. Like,
Yeah.
you want to let it go. You want to hear yourself letting it go, not being frustrated about it because you're still hanging on, right? It's
Yes.
like, all
Well,
right,
that
so she
because
did.
you're still up here.
Right.
This, yeah. Because you're
Feels
still
good.
kind of carrying the story, which is going, but.
Right. But that's the ego. But that's the
Yeah, you
ego.
have to sit back. Not that's it. It like really wants you to, like, like you said, like take a big, not like no, like a, what does that feel like? It wants you to know the difference. So as much as you may get more triggered right now. Like I got triggered last night and figured out was like a trauma response or something. Like I'm, still working through those things too. Certain emotions hit you or whatever, but it always, I also see this synchronicity and how those things happen in conjunction with the lessons that I'm learning,
Mm-hmm.
and the messages I'm receiving, um, and what's coming to me. And then I will be given an opportunity to work through that and rebalance myself. So we get tipped. I even had the in a dream recently, like a raft and on the water, and to rebalance that, it tips. And I think very much it's like we can tip forward, and to really know and understand what it feels like to
Yeah.
I'm not here. There I am. There I am. It's quiet. Different. Mm-hmm. And when I can maintain it, and it's really challenging me lately. We'll go to do something and do an errand, and I know I have a bit of the ADHD mind. So my mind will have a song playing, a commercial, a conversation between two people that I'm having with myself and somebody else, and another story going on. Like, so it's, it's a real challenge for me to disengage from all those different thought lines that are going, and find myself back in here
Hmm. I kind
and
of go
just
to
be
the
like,
I'm the observer, you know. I'm not the one
yeah,
even saying this right now. I'm the one observing the voice saying this, you know, in your head while you're,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I just have to be like really present with, like, you know, what's in my hand. Do I feel it? Can I feel the coolness of the glass? Right?
Hmm.
Like, we just autopilot so much where we're not actually even like engaged in our body and like feeling our experience. And I think that like that's one of those things, like when you're a kid, you're still very much engaged in your body and feeling your experience. So like new textures and things will just like, we want to feel everything,
Right.
right? Where like you run barefoot through the grass, you can feel all the grass on your feet. Like, I know right now you can put yourself back in your head and you're like, yeah, like I can feel the grass on my feet again. The reason you can is because of how you were engaged in that state.
Right.
We felt the sun on our skin. We felt the cotton of our t-shirt and didn't like the tag at the back. We felt, like we felt everything.
Right.
And
In the
and when we
moment.
did things, yeah, and we did things, like I I make myself um toasted peanut butter and jam with some scrambled eggs every day. Well, when I was a kid, I used to come home from lunch every day and make myself peanut butter and jelly, chocolate milk, watch Flintstones. And like even just this little habit of like when I'm making my peanut butter and jelly, like remembering how I did that as a kid. Like, I felt each piece of bread as I put it in the toaster. I wasn't thinking about all these things.
Right.
I was just excited about my peanut butter and jelly sandwich and like engaged in the making of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm really trying to like bring that practice back in and just slow down, like, and be aware of like the experience that I'm having quite physically with whatever it may be.
Well, I really
It's
love how
challenging.
you, I really love how you said that it's still, we still have our challenges, right? Because I was thinking
Mm,
about the last few years, how I've gone through some of the most challenging things in my life. Yet my experience of it was way different than it would have been 20 years ago, right? Like
right.
with my mom, and it's almost like everything you have to do opposite. Like when my mom died when I was 19, I just kind of hid that away. I didn't allow myself to feel it. I'm just now dealing with stuff from when I was 19, from like tucking all of that away. And my mom's coming through, and I'm realizing all these things
Mm-hmm.
that I had, you know, buried deep within me. And then, and then going to my brother's funeral and being exactly the opposite, really being in the moment instead of trying to push it away, really thinking about each of his children as they were talking and hearing their stories and being in that moment and just being thankful that, we had that time together. That he would have loved the fact that, the funeral brought so many people back together after so many years. So many of us hadn't seen each other in decades. So I'm thinking about all of this stuff, and a lot of stuff with my mom started resurfacing then because I realized I didn't allow myself, to do
To
that.
feel it.
And that's when the whole scripture, Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead, really took on a whole new meaning that when you're really alive, you experience the funeral differently. You're not really there to bury the person. You're there to honor them and love them, and you realize they're not really gone, right? So I
Right.
always feel like, the Bible didn't have all the stories, but in that particular story, when he said, let the dead bury the dead, I'm sure he gave him some kind of experience. I think he was going to bury his brother, ironically, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like one of those things where Jesus could have given him some kind of, experience that wouldn't be so much accepted in the church. It would be too far
Yeah.
out there. You don't talk to the, but think about it. Jesus even called Lazarus forth. When he was dead, he was talking to a dead man and he said, come forth, right? So,
Right.
so much of it's right there, so much of the programming we have can be like deprogrammed in other parts of the scriptures, you know. So that's I found my way out of a lot of the programming just by reading it over and over again. I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
it doesn't really say what they're teaching in church there anywhere, you know. So much is like that. I can go on
Mm-hmm.
rambling forever about that,
No,
but
you're good.
I
It's
think it's.
either me or you. So you take a turn.
Let me take a quick last glance and make sure.
Mm.
Hey, Sun Psychic Gene is here. What's up, Gene? And John Benny's here. I missed you
Oh, hey,
guys.
John. I
Oh
caught a
yeah,
bit of the was watching a bit of you guys chatting the other day. It's really good to see John. He's looking good, doing lots.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's Maria.
Really happy to see that.
Lots of
Hmm.
love to all of you guys. Sorry, I stopped watching the chat when I started talking, and there wasn't much action going on at all. And then all of a sudden, I look back and
It's all kinds of comments. Well, I will just add to what, you were saying about the funeral thing. And, recently with my grandmother passing in the fall too. And I really I was really engaged in the experience
hmm
and just like really present with it too. And had this really unique experience, like of life, just like life and death just being this like constant like explosion. Yeah, it was quite profound, that we don't have to experience death as dead, that it's just this great explosion
yeah,
of life too. Like, as one thing dies, there's like a million trillion things being born, and it's it's just always all going on. So something's always coming into life and something's always falling away. There is no end and beginning. It's just all going. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And really it's just the blink of an eye, how profound um our experience of linear time. It brought some downloads about that too, which was really interesting. We think time is this laid out thing. It's just a lot of this is just a blink of an eye. It's just a dream when we're all done. You know, it
Yeah,
goes by so fast. Yeah,
absolutely. Just like our hours gone by so fast, really.
yeah,
I didn't know if our little list of a few items was going to last that long. Like, all right, we'll see what happens, but here we
yeah.
are.
We get through the. I
Yeah,
think so. Everything gets interconnected. It's funny how much we'll do this, eh, Shane? Like we'll talk about sort of this one thing that we notice, and then we'll talk about this other thing. But then it all ends up all being connected,
yeah.
and then we just end up repeating the same things. But it's a deeper level. It's amazing how many times you can take like the same word or phrase and you know or download that you got, and it just keeps expanding, the experience or understanding of it, and it just keeps like opening up on a greater level, and just gets broader and broader and broader till it all just becomes all the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is, many of us are experiencing that. I was just looking in the chat. You guys just hopped in right at the very end. It was like kind of quiet for a while, and now everybody's all
Oh,
chatty
and then
again.
they realized we were here. Should we ramble on for a little longer?
We can if you have something to ramble on about.
Does anybody have any questions or anything?
Oh, they're just sharing. Hey, Dana, what's up?
Yeah.
People, maybe they
Just
just.
Sharon
I
and
should have.
Karen?
I should have put it up a little bit sooner, but I wasn't sure. Um, I was doing had
You
plumbing
never
stuff I
know
was
with us,
doing.
eh?
Yeah,
Yeah. We just really go with the flow.
yeah. We're to in the flow. It's like
Yeah.
to just.
It's like we'll make a plan, but it's okay. Plans don't work out. Yeah.
It's cool.
We'll just go with it.
So one of the things that came to mind, if I can remember it. Mm. John Benny has a question. Let's see.
Hmm.
Michelle, are we in 5D yet? That's a good question.
I don't know if I really like adhere to terminology like that anymore. Um, and I think that a lot of whether we're here or there is an illusion of perception. And, especially with the sort of download and experience that I had this week of feeling, embodying like my authentic self, it was a greater understanding of we already are that. Um, we already are everything that we are. We're just having this through a point of perception,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you never stop being who you truly are. And so however you want to uh, label that or whatever. Um, but for me, a lot of this is okay. I think what I want to say is that we're not limited really to any specific realm. Um, I think we enter many of them while we sleep too. Um, I don't think that we're as separated as what we think we are. It's a bit of an illusion of the
Spoiler
game.
alert.
Yeah, it's a bit of an illusion of the game. Um, so we are already that which we yearn to be. We're just pretending for a very little while.
That time
Um,
is real and stuff like that. Because you need time
yeah.
for the word yet to work, right?
Well, I think it's a really exciting experience, like opening presents on Christmas morning
Yeah.
to re-experience the truth of who you really are as like this like massive amount of love. Like just massive. Like it's really quite profound to experience that truth that you are not really like this wounded, broken thing, that you are, complete already. Um, and it's just a part of you like having a dream to re-experience yourself.
Oh,
Because yeah, when you open up to the like realization of who you really are, it's like, wow, like I am the whoa. That feels great. Whoosh. Like why do we get on roller coasters? Like why do we like Christmas and opening presents? Like there's a surprise, like wow, in this re-experience of self.
it's
Yeah.
funny. John says, Michelle, I feel like the old me from 2019 would say, this is 5D. The present me says, I am now in my highest self. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you can call things whatever you want, but the more definitions we often use, the more it can narrow our perspective
Yeah. It's
a little,
limiting.
because through definition we define through separation how things are different from another. Um,
It's all
so the
limiting
more
stuff
we,
from the duality,
it's all limitation. Yeah, yeah. So I like to shed off the limitations and
Yeah.
to say that we are this or that. It's like, no, we're already everything. You're already everything. And so you can call yourself anything you want to. It's all true. And we are all that for many people. We are many things for many people, but really we're just actors on a stage, playing a character and playing a role. And when it's all said and done and we take off the wardrobe and the makeup and the costumes and resume the truth of who we are, um, we're the purest form of light and love. That was another big reveal I had recently. Um, in this quest to know the truth. Like, but I want to know. Being an Aquarius, I want to know. And when you realize how much illusion is, and this is in this reality, it's like, well, how do you really ever know? How do you really ever know anything?
How do you find truth in a fiction,
How
right?
do you find truth in a complete illusion, right? What is truth? And how can I move forward in this reality without knowing the truth? And sort of even getting to that point where it's like, you know what? I don't want to play anymore if you don't tell me what the real rules are. I'm not playing this because you gave me the rules before, but they were all wrong, and that was all a lie, you know. So until I know what the real rules are, I don't want to play this game anymore. But sorry, I lost myself again.
Oh no, we've been there. So many people can relate with that, and I do feel like
Yeah.
it's like gosh, my view of it is like if you can imagine we're this antenna, we're this being that extends up through what people are calling the dimensions or the densities, if you will. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we do have some part of us that exists there, and it's really like it's just our awareness is here. So like while we exist everywhere, like you were saying, our perception is here, but I think we have the ability to raise our perception within this realm. And I think as we do that, it helps others to do the same thing, just like we were talking in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
about the mountain analogy. I think
Mm-hmm.
so it's like it's all here, but it's like a frequency. It's like tuning your radio station to somewhere nobody's tuned it to. And then as you begin to do that, people are like, oh, I didn't know about that station. Oh, you could turn the dial. I didn't know that, And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's not like we go anywhere or anything like that, but it's kind of like we've
Well,
been
yeah.
calling it a shift. It's like an ongoing shift. Things are shifting. Yeah.
Well, I really liked one of the images I got recently about what, like, sort of in regards to the truth of what we are, right? Um, and it was a film projector, and so how I was seeing it was like we are the light, like the light that goes through the projector, right? Your lens is your perception, and the story of our experience or our perceived experience is just this film reel,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're casting our light, through this film and through the lens of this perception to display our reality. But we get so engaged in the movie that we're watching. We think that we're the actors, or we think we're the film or the movie. um but really we're the light. We're just the light going through this projection,
Yeah.
right? And that in a lot of ways, like these different dimensions and um like lower levels or denser levels, it's just more projection. Like it's more film content, more narratives, more tighter lens of perceptions, right? That take you farther away from just the purity of light. But as we break through each of these levels, I don't know if you want to call them higher dimensions or whatever they are, but um, truth changes, right? There. Basically, what I saw is there is no truth, because I was like, "What's true? I want divine truth. What is the truth? What's divine truth?" And the message I got was really at the end, there is no truth. It's just light. It's just everything is just light, and truths are these perceptions or the film that we're viewing, right, through these different dimensions. But when you take all the stories away of what is and what isn't, why it is,
Yeah.
that really all that's left is this light, which is love. And its pure source is love. Yeah. Because each word that you add, each description or each context, right, each narrative diffuses the light. It separates itself to create context and opposition, right? Um, but when you take away all the descriptions and the words and the separations, it's just all one thing. I hope that makes sense, guys.
I think it makes sense to those who know. It's like,
Yeah, yeah. Might be a bit of gibberish. Again, because a lot of these things, I know you and receive this as well, with receiving these messages, they're very visual. you
Yeah,
know,
and it's
and
hard to.
it yeah, there it's very, you know, it's showing different metaphors, you know, and how they work together. And then at the same time, gives me a deep sense of feeling or knowing on a deeper level within myself of what that means to me. So truth is becoming more of a feeling and less of a description.
Right.
Right.
That's
And
totally
that's all
true.
I have to say about that.
Well, thank you guys for hopping in here at the end.
I hope I made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say happy birthday early to Michelle
Oh
because it's
yeah,
a week from today, and we
it is
won't
a
be
week
on.
today.
Yeah, yep.
Right. Well, we're
So,
going to do a session. So we did that last year. Shane
yeah,
did a session for me on my birthday. It's
yep,
always really great because I know I get a lot. Like I said, I get a lot of energy at this time. Kicks off in February, and then going into March with spring is usually quite a lot of downloads, dreams, and experiences to work through. So I really found last year really helpful having this session, and just I think it progresses me so much further. So I'm excited to do that. Hopefully, we'll have some stories to share on our next visit
oh, I'm
from
sure we will.
session. We usually have a
Everything's so
really good laugh.
connected. Yeah, exactly. We usually
Yeah, we
have
usually have a good
something.
laugh. Yeah.
And it's a surprise, and I love that you don't know what it is because that's going
Yeah,
into
don't
without
ask
the
any questions.
expectations.
Just
Just
see
like we
who
were
show
talking.
what happens.
I love that. Well, we
Yeah.
appreciate you guys being here. Lots of love, light, and
Yeah.
unity. We'll see you on the next one. Mwah.
Peace.
Peace.